To Flint Talk Radio. I'm Sam Jahari from Community Parent, and Charlie Buckley has moved on. He's over in Minnesota, and we wish him all the luck in the world. Today, I want to tell the story. How Community Parent was formed and how we got this thing started. My daughter Brianna Jahari, at 14 years old, she had lost her mom a couple years prior to that. To addiction and to an overdose. And, Brianna was just feeling all kinds of pain. And to be honest with you, it's like I really didn't know what to do with her. I had, at one time, she went for like a rehab place. She was going for like 8 days. Then she came back and she was just troubled, she was in pain. She lost her mom. And at 14, she was getting in trouble and she was experimenting. And I thought if I sent her, I sent her to Tennessee to be with her uncle on her mom's side. I thought maybe she needed that, to get some kind of closure with her mom. And this way he could share, her mom's things that she was going through and stuff like that with her. So at 14, she went the beginning of the school year to Tennessee. Then she came back like at the end of January. And when she came back, she didn't want to go back to her school. She said, "Daddy, can you please send me to this high school?" And my parents had lived in that area, so we put it that she was living over there, and we got her to go to that high school. A couple months into it, Brianna was started seeing this older boy, and this older boy, he had the same kind of problems that her mom was having, and I think deep in her heart, she just thought that she was a savior for this kid, and so she started skipping school, and it was weird because I would never get a call back from the high school, for like 3 days later or whatever. But when it was the count, to make sure that they got their money, they would make sure to call me. Hey, can you make sure your child can be at the school? Because it's count day. I was asking for them to help me at that time, that she was skipping school and she's hanging out with this boy and stuff. And, I said, isn't there something where I can go in front of a judge or something for her being uncordial? And they said, oh, you just missed that date. So anyways, at the same time that she's skipping and she's running away and stuff, at this time, I reached to the runaway program here in Genesee County. And, got her to come in, and she made a deal that she wasn't going to run away and this and that. But, pretty soon, it was towards the end of the school year. She was a sophomore at this time. And at this point, she, as the school was getting close to the end, she ran away. And, I would call the sheriff every other day when she was running away and stuff, but it's not, they would say, okay, well, we'll, if we pull her, if she gets pulled over or whatever, then we'll know where to bring her. I turned to a system that I thought could help me because I really didn't know or have an idea what to do with her. Brianna was obviously, she was experimenting with drugs, and at the end of the year, she ended up running away from home. And so I called the sheriff, left it on the answer machine of this sergeant that I'd been working with that had been trying to get me in front of a judge. So I left a message that she ran away from home. I don't know where she is, but I think she's with this boy, and he's living out in the Holly area that I knew. Now, in the beginning of July, I get a call from the Holly Police Department. and it was a lady. It was about 5 o'clock. It was this police officer, and she's like, "Mr. Jahari, we picked up your daughter because her boyfriend had overdosed, and I want to know what this 15-year-old is doing with this 18-year-old boy." So at this point, I was like, she ran away from home. It's supposed to be she's supposed to be a runaway. She's supposed to be in the system. She says, I don't have her in the system. So at that point, I went and I picked up my daughter later on that day, and I said, Brianna, I don't get it. You've seen your mom die of drugs. What the hell are you doing? And her response to me was, you know what, Daddy? My mom was kept away from me because of drugs. I wanted to know what was so important in these drugs that kept my mom away. That's a stupid philosophy, if as I'm thinking, but all the therapists and stuff, they says, that's normal, but at this point, I ended up taking my daughter into emergency, and I believe at that time she didn't go to rehab because I'm not really sure at that point if she did or if she didn't. But we went back to the runway program, and she had made a deal with the therapist, or I don't know what he was there, that she wasn't going to run away, and there were certain things that she had to do, and there were certain things we had to do, as a parent. But as we got, a few weeks into it, she ran away again, and finally we got in front of a judge. So at this point, I was like, hooray, I'm going to get some help here. So, I went in front of this judge, and I was telling this judge, my daughter is running away, she's using drugs, she's with this older boy now. She's not a bad kid, but I think she's making some bad choices. And at this point, this judge responds to me, well, Mr. Jahari, it seems like you want to blame everybody for your troubles. It's obvious you just need to take a couple weeks and off of work and be home with your daughter. I was really dumbfounded. I couldn't believe that this judge, I couldn't believe how he got to be on that chair, first of all. And, from the probation officer to the lady from the runaway program, they looked at me and they said, he's just an asshole, plain and simple. And, sometimes you go in front of authority and you don't know what to do. They have this power to throw your ass in jail, and you don't know how much that you can open your mouth, and you really don't want to piss them off. But our system is a failure. And the sooner they understand that they're failures, that the sooner that we can make some changes. Brianna ended up doing, 10 days in the detention center. And she came back home, again, sneaking out at night, to meet up with this boy. I could not keep her away from him, no matter what I did. And, at one time, I took all her door off her off of her room, and I was taking her dresser and everything out. I was just going to leave her a mattress, so this way there was no privacy for her. But so I can, because she was sneaking out in the middle of the night. So she calls the sheriff. The sheriff comes to my house, and he says, well, either you put all her stuff back, or I'm going to take you to jail and take her to jail. It's like, what the hell? What, where is my rights in all this? As a parent, if your child is stealing from you, if your child is beating you up, if your child is getting in all kinds of trouble, it's not like you can change the locks or kick them out of the house. No. With Brianna having all these problems, at one time they put a tether on her, she cut it off, she ran away from home, and I was asking the sheriff, I says, I want to change the locks. I'm scared of her. I'm scared of the environment that she's hanging with. I have these two other children that I need to protect. And, my whole life I was protecting Brianna from her mom. Now I have these two other kids that I need to protect from her. And he says, well, you can't change the locks. This is her home. After, she had stole from me. And this is a child that I thought we had such a close relationship. I know she was the love of my life, and I know that, in 5th grade she wrote a book, and it was called My Daddy Pie. That's how much she loved me. But once she started getting on drugs and stuff, this child of mine just changed. She became something, I didn't know who she was anymore. I don't think she knew who she was anymore. That's what drugs do. It makes you become a thief, a liar, a killer. You do anything and everything for your drugs. And this is the child that I raised, and I couldn't believe where she gone to. So at this point, I said, well, she can't come in my home. So, she went outside and she called the sheriff, and the sheriff came and he said, well, Mr. Jari, you cannot not let her in. I says, I am. Do what you got to do. I'm doing what I got to do. So at this point, they took her to this runaway place, and she was all messed up. And they said, no, she can't stay here. So they called me up. They says, Mr. Jari, your daughter's messed up. She's on some kind of drugs, and I can't have her stay here. So at this point, I says, well, I understand, but she can't come in my home either. I'm just worried for these other two kids. And I had Protective Services get on the phone with me, and they says, well, you can't pick and choose your child. We're going to take your other two kids away. This was their response to my needing help. This was their response of, what can I do with my daughter? It's not that I don't love my child. I'm looking for help for her. And their response was, they are going to take my other two kids away. Well, at this point, they pissed me off. And I said, I don't care, you and what army you think is going to come take my other two children away? And they said, are you threatening us? I said, I'm not threatening nobody, but it's a promise. It's a promise. As a father, you are the protector of your children. And I'm trying to protect all my children. Not just Brianna, not my two boys. I'm trying to protect them all. My daughter was in trouble and needed help. And I could not give her the help that she needs. I was asking for the professionals, for our system, for help. And they didn't have a clue. Well, I ended up losing my child. She ended up going to therapy, to rehab. And at the last, after, she served multiple times at the detention center, and I think it was her 3rd or 4th rehab place, she went for 4 months. And she came back home, and she was just beautiful. The judge looked at her and couldn't believe it was the same person. Brianna was on the debate team and was very good at it. She was beautiful. She was witty, charming, smart, funny. would light up a room when she came in. But drugs just destroyed her. So after she came back home the last time, Brianna finally got out probation, and she was going to be 17, and she was looking to get out and be on her own. And I asked her probation officer, and they said, "Mr. Jara, she's 17. She's pretty much an adult." Well, at this point, she got back with the clan that she was hanging with, and Brianna started using again. And I'm sure she was dancing. God knows what else she was doing for money. But I could never give up on my child. And, come January of 2011, she called me. She said, "Daddy, I want to come home." She said, "Daddy, I overdosed, and it scared the hell out of me." She said, "Please, Daddy, can I come home?" And I said, "Honey, my house is always open to you." I said, "But, you have to look out for your brothers. If you don't look out for them, who's going to look out for them?" She said, "I promise, Daddy. I'm not going to do this shit. I just want to come home." And she did. And those 3 weeks that Brianna was home, it was kind of, we made amends. She, as a parent, you just feel like you let your child down, that you are a failure somehow, that you did something wrong. And she told me, she said, "Daddy, it wasn't nothing that you did. You were a great parent, but it was me." Anyways, February 14th, come along, and Brianna had gone out that weekend, and it wasn't like she asked permission, and she didn't think that she needed to. She left Saturday and came home Sunday night, and at that point, I had her sit down at the table, and I told her, "These are the ground rules. You're going to go back to school. You're going to find a job. You're going to get enrolled in college," because Brianna had took her GED and passed it. And she says, "Yeah, I could tell she was all messed up when she came home." But she said, "Yep." And I said, "All right then, go to bed," And the next morning, I woke up. I was going to do my taxes, and as I was leaving, I seen Brianna in the hallway, and she just she kind of waved at me like I thought she was saying hello. Found out she was saying goodbye. Because later that day I came home, and Brianna was supposed to go to driver's training. And I was trying to wake her up, or I was calling for her, and Brianna was behind her door, needle still in her arm, and she was gone. It was crazy. See your life just change in that second. Well, as a parent and going through that, it's like you don't want nobody to know what's happening in your home. You're embarrassed. Well, at that point, I wasn't embarrassed anymore. And, it was crazy because I was surprised by how many people my child had touched. At the funeral home, the whole community came forward. And everybody loved her. And she had touched so many people's lives in her young life. Um, as I started speaking out, um, I learned that this is an epidemic, and this is happening everywhere. Um, Brianna has her, when they were taking her out in the ambulance, her cell phone rang, and I picked up the phone, and it was a friend of hers. She's crying on the other end, and she said, "Mr. Jahari, is it true?" I said, "Yeah, Erica, it's true. Stay away from this shit. Please, stay away from this shit." And Erica said, "Yeah, I will, Mr. Jahari." And 2 days later, she had met her fate too. She had died of an overdose to heroin also. So I picked up this torch. I picked up this torch that I'm going to do anything and everything that I can in my power. I could not help my child, but I'm hoping and I pray that I can save your child. So this torch, it just burns inside me that I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference. At that point, a good friend of mine, he was her debate coach, and we started Community Parent. And Community Parent was formed to save lives, to help our children, our youth. Because you see, I'm old school, and I remember everybody looking out for everybody. And it's not like that anymore. And that's what Community Parent wants to do. We are the village, and it takes a village. We don't turn our backs on nobody. We're here to help. As we started Community Parent, we learned that not only is there an epidemic of drugs, but there's also epidemic of depression, violence, and everything seems to be wrapped up, they're all intertwined together. One out of three will fall into depression. Every 13 minutes, somebody commits suicide. Every 13 minutes. 1 out of 10 is an addict. We have the addiction genes. Okay? And every 19 minutes, we lose somebody to addiction, drugs and alcohol. So this torch, it burns to make a difference. You see, as I was growing up, and from what I seen in the system, that addiction is choice. But I found out it's not choice. Nobody chooses to be an addict. Nobody wants to be an addict. Nobody wants to live like that. So addiction is not choice. And 10% of us have these addiction genes. And more likely, if your parents were alcoholics, your grandparents, somebody in the second generation, aunts, uncles, okay, if they have this problem, it runs in through your genes, okay? 1 out of 10. I grew up, there was 8 of us, okay? We did everything pretty much the same way. 2 of us, got addicted. Well, one sister, she got addicted to cocaine. She went to rehab and she kicked it right from the get. I had another sister. She struggled with addiction for over 30 years off crack. So the addiction isn't necessarily, what drug it is. Okay, it could be gambling. It could be sex. It could be pornography. It could be any of these. And a lot of times, addiction will fall with depression, bipolar. There's multiple diagnosis. It's not just the addiction. Okay, and when you're an addict, you'll kick one habit and you'll go into another habit, whether you work too much or any of these. But the whole thing is, some of the addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol, they're self-destruction, and they're a lot more powerful. Gambling, you lose your whole life, everybody you know. Same thing with drugs and alcohol. You lose your family, you lose everybody, because the whole thing is we don't know how to deal with it, and we think it's in their hands. They can just quit. Why they don't just quit? They want to quit. Nobody wants to be an addict. Nobody wants to be depressed or be bipolar or whatever. See, with Brianna, that's what they diagnosed her at. And when they first diagnosed her, it was she's bipolar. But see, the whole thing is Brianna, all the way through school, first she's ADD. Then she's got ADHD. And it's like these specialists or whatever, they will talk to you for 20 minutes and they want to give you a diagnosis. They just want to put a label on you, which is a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of bullshit.
Well, I study social sciences, psychology, sociology, and all that social work. But I think it's the most bizarre thing is they teach you in the beginning of those classes that nobody should wear a stereotype pigeonhole and classify anybody. And those are exactly what those disciplines engage in.
Exactly.
And I had a professor at UMass, she was a psychology prof, she hated the diagnostic standard manual. She wrote the cookbook. She had this, she had this, she started this, she had that. She goes, it's not that easy. It's not that simple. Labeling really doesn't do it well. She goes and she said, every one of those people can display, those attributes at certain points of life, certain stressors, that be manifested, and it can be labeled. You're going to be stuck in that first treatment for that particular, and you've already gone different. Your things have already gone different.
Exactly.
It's really real. It's that whole classification.
Well, that's it. Well, then they put a label on you, and then they want to medicate you. Well, this don't work. Okay, let's try this one. Let's try this one. And all of a sudden you got 5-6 different medications, and they're all trying to combat each other, which is just nuts. I'm sorry. It's not that I don't believe in our doctors or the medication, but if you do your own research, you find that as a country we are heavily medicated. Almost everybody is on 4 or 5 different medications. Okay, whether it's cholesterol, high blood pressure, you name it, and you'll find that each pill, it might help with your cholesterol, but it gives you a side effect of something else. So now you're on another pill for this thing, which gives you a side effect of something else. And all these pills that you take, nothing heals. And you're on the medication for life. For life. That's crazy. That's crazy. Our drug companies are getting rich, and as human beings, we're like guinea pigs, and just here, take a pill, so they can get more richer. And it's not working. It's not working. So, once Community Parent was formed, I think it was a couple months after Brianna died, that the Sheriff Department, Genesee County Sheriff Department, they made this program called Chasing the Dragon. And we went in to Brianna's school, and it was pretty powerful. the whole thing is, it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for me to not take it anymore, not stand by the, with my head in the sand, waiting for somebody else to say, to do something, okay? I couldn't do that anymore. Like I said before, I lost my child. I can't bring her back, but, I don't want people to remember Brianna because she died of an addict. I want Brianna to be remembered, how many from her story, how many people did she save? Because that's the type of person Brianna was. She was just a very caring individual, a very lovable child that the drugs took over. And I think she was done, she couldn't fight it anymore. So I pick up this fight for her. I pick up this fight for your child, for your parent, for your aunt, for your uncle. Because you see, everybody's touched by drugs and alcohol. Everybody is touched. It doesn't matter how much money you have, where you live, that has nothing to do with it, okay? And, they say, well, over here they have a problem with heroin. Over here they have problems with opiates. Over in this place they have problems with meth. Over in these towns they have problems with marijuana. We're all touched. The whole thing is we experiment in our life. We just want to shut down sometimes. We just want the pain to go away. And it becomes our master. And it's not in our control anymore. And that's the whole thing of waking up the listeners, that if you do have a problem, what happens is there's 24 million addicts in our country. Only 10% ever go get help. Only 10% ever go get help.
The reason why they don't is the reluctance to go to seek out help is because once you do that, you have your name and they have their thoughts, you're now good for certain activities, certain jobs. You're mindless, basically.
Exactly.
So, it's like then the stigma is changing. You become that. All the other things you've done in your life at that point, that's all you are.
Exactly.
I get angry at people who are like, I know people who are good families, like your daughter. I didn't know your daughter, I'm sorry to say that. I've never met you after all that happened. Soon after, no, I didn't do it.
You knew me, yep.
I get angry at people because I think that it's like, you have to stop. Why do you feel the need to do this? And it's an asinine thing because I know there's no real rational answer. I would be willing to say, well, that makes sense. It makes sense like a custom fit, my friend says. Drugs are a custom fit. Somebody's going to find it, somebody's going to use it of that, or it has some kind of solace. It's going to find, they're going to find some way to justify it, to integrate it into their life, and it doesn't make any sense to the outsider. You're not in their head to see what causes it. And that's what it angers me, because I see good families, good people, they raise their kids, they send them to school, they pay to prepare them to go to college. They had this whole thing, they were all supposed to have more on the same page, whatever. And these people have this desire almost that we're willing to try this stuff to get some side credit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. I don't understand the hard work. I can understand wanting to feel different ways. But I've always thought drugs are kind of a temporary, almost like a permanent solution. These things are just fleeting. You feel down. Okay, now you get onto these drugs. You feel temporarily good. But the long, reaching shot of this is going to be, you're now ensnared in this. Why bother doing it? I never understood the process of that. But I'm not being self-righteous. We all have our own issues. We have a way of handling it. But I just understand. Especially in hard work.
Well, that's it, exactly. See, that's where we got to break this stigma. People aren't afraid to say, well, I'm a diabetic. People aren't afraid to say, I have cancer. But we are afraid to say, we're an addict. Addiction is a brain disease. And the best way to describe it is that person is just inept. And they don't know why. They can be, the captain of their football team. They can be class president. They can be, but something inside their brain, they just don't feel adequate. They feel incomplete, and this is the best way to describe it. It's a brain disease, and no one knows why they feel that way. They do, okay, but that's what they're going through. I mean, it's hard to understand somebody, that you feel, you look at him and you say, well, man, this person's got his whole life going. He's got everything, that somebody could want. We had this girl that Oprah put on the show, and this girl, she lettered, in three different sports. She was going to go to a Division I school. She got hurt her senior year, and from the doctor giving her opiates, the pain medication, now she's selling her ass for heroin. It took over her life. No one knows. I mean, 80% of heroin users, they don't start with heroin. Nobody wants to, put a needle in their arm or whatever. But it's, whether it's marijuana or whether it's alcohol or whether it's, the opiates or the pain pills, it just takes over their life. It makes them feel complete, I guess. I don't know.
I think this sounds very personal. I think there's this impulse in humans to actually have to self-destruct. I really do. And I think we're not really aware of it on the level, but we'll find ourselves engaging. Maybe it's not drugs, but we live like drugs. But I mean, there's also behaviors. There's an attitude we adapt that lead to negative outcomes in our life. We say we want to be happy, quote unquote, whatever that means. But I think we have this impulse to want to wallow in misery. We want to keep on boiling our own. We see the possibilities in our own lives, but we just want to. I think people are overwhelmed by potentialities. I mean, that sounds hokey, but I don't know what drives people. We all do it to some degree. We all have these impulses for self-destruction.
Well, that saying, misery loves company, and that's what it is,
You notice I had a friend one time, so he was sitting around one time, his friend comes to me, hey, want to sit there and try to get drunk and sit on the chair on school steps and get all depressed? And go, yeah, sure. It sounded appealing. And she goes, he was so perverse, he was laughing at it. Years later, he goes, I was on board for that. He goes, I was down for that. He says, yeah, let's sit around and get drunk and feel depressed. I mean, and it's weird. I mean, why looking at the drug use? I mean, this is an observation. Why did the drug use, like alcohol and depressant cells like marijuana?
Yeah.
It lowers, but that's the most widely abused substance around. People want to feel something, even if it's like sadness, nostalgia, or yearning. But we have this impulse for self-destruction. It's within it. We got all these commanding forces. There's like a multiplicity of souls. I think Nietzsche calls it a multiplicity of souls.
Mm-hmm.
The same brain, the same heart, the same chest, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's hard to really figure out, the reasons why anybody does anything, And I think if they could put a handle on it, they probably would. But some things that it's like you go to jump off a cliff, and this guy's walking, he's getting ready to jump off a cliff. He trips. Oh my God, I could have fell. It's like you get that second thought, do I really want to do this? But sometimes, it's like when I was on the Dr. Nandi show. He had this girl that was 16, okay, and she struggled with marijuana. So she went to rehab and everything, came back, they took her to a different school, and she said, everybody was trying to get her to use the marijuana. She said, all my friends wanted me to smoke, so I ended up smoking. I said, let me ask you something, What? These are your called friends? These people aren't your friends, Misery loves company. These people want to feel good about themselves, or they just want to sell you something, So they're trying to turn you onto it so they can either make some money off of you, or they just want you to join the clan so they can feel good about themselves.
It's a human need to be wanted, to be integrated into a group.
Exactly.
Nietzsche called it the herd mentality. I mean, we all possess that to some degree. We know
Right.
If they think that people are being self-righteous or arrogant, if they say, pick apart culture and society, they'll make observations. George Carlin was really good for that. A lot of people didn't like him because he had such a cynicism of all people, but I think he was on board for a lot. He was on target for a lot.
He told it like it is, and that's what it is. Sometimes it's like you don't want to tell what you're feeling, or you don't want to hurt this one's feelings, and you don't want to hurt this one's feelings. You're just being honest, And yeah, sometimes we gotta bite our tongue because it's gonna piss somebody off, which it's nuts. And I think that's what's going on in our world. Nobody wants to get involved. They'll see a murder happen and they'll just step on by it like it's not happening there. Which it's crazy. It's time that we come together as a people, and get our heads out of the sand and say, this is happening in your neighborhood. It's happening in your neighborhood. I don't care where you live, okay? Addiction and depression and bipolar and all these, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate.
I remember when I first started moving I was like a roll the vultures for rates. But I was someone who was AIDS, right? The same way a lot of kids again. I went to school with them. We had a couple, like a reunion, so there's all levels of AIDS, most of people say the same, but they always let me know people in the city doing drugs. And every one of them had a huge bottle of Valium sitting on the shelf.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, realize if you're overusing those things, why only take the edge out? I'm only using to take the edge out. And it goes to the point, like you said, about when you have your Rihanna, you wanted to feel, you were feeling too much, it's like, gosh, what you got to do more than another drug. The simple fact is, as humans, we should have to feel something.
Exactly.
That's what, it's like a self-defense scenario. You kill somebody because they're going after you. You had to do it. But you don't like this feeling afterwards.
Exactly.
You're not supposed to like that.
Exactly.
There's some things you're not ever supposed to be satisfied with or at peace with.
Correct. See, and that's the whole thing is we think it's okay because we got something from a doctor. Doctors don't know anything. It's like when you go to a mechanic. Well, it could be this, and it could be this, and it could be this. So there's 3-4 different. Well, it's the same thing with a doctor, and when he gives you a certain medicine, it's like, well, let's see if this, it's like throwing shit on the wall and see what's gonna stick, well, okay, if this worked, that's fine, 2 weeks later, you come back, if it worked, all right. If it doesn't, then we'll try something else. Obviously it wasn't this. Instead of just really trying to find the problem right then, all they want to do is cover up the symptoms instead of really taking care of what the problem is. And that's what we find. It's crazy, but you go to a party and somebody will say, oh, I got a headache. And 10 people will open up their purses or, hey, I got this, I got Valium, I got Vicodin, I got this, I got that. All of a sudden they're doctors because, they got this for something. So they think, oh, what the hell? Might as well give it to you. And 10% of us, it's just Russian roulette, even if they've never, Charlie, it's like he was an addict all his life, but it didn't really come together till later in his life. That it ended up, you can live with something for a long time and, be that social drunk or whatever until, all of a sudden now it's took over and you can't handle it anymore. You can't manage it anymore. So you can manage something for a long time, but if we have these, these 10%, these addiction genes or this brain damage or whatever they want to call it, all of a sudden it takes over your life, and it could be just, from an accident, and all of a sudden you're on opiates, or pain pills or whatever. There's a lot of people that I've talked to that they got started on Vicodin for a certain reason, and it was hell trying to get off of it. When I was 12 years old, my father, he was in a bad car accident, and I remember the doctor used to give him morphine, and I remember, he would shoot himself with this morphine, or my mom would shoot him up with it. And I remember this one time that he didn't have any. and he took alcohol, he put it in the syringe, and shot himself with it. And this was like on a weekend because he couldn't get the morphine. And I believe it was that following Monday, my mom took my dad to, the Pontiac State Hospital so he could get off the morphine. And he said it was like a prison, walking in, then you got all these crazy people, on the other side. But that's what it is. You see a problem, you see something taking over your life, get some help. Get some help. Your brain is stronger than anything, but you have to make that first step. You have to make that first step. And that's what hopefully, Community Parent and Chasing the Dragon, that's what we are, is we're in education. So when you see that you have a problem or you've run into this, that for God's sake, ask for some help. Ask for some help. And, we're getting ready to kick off our year again for Chasing the Dragon presentation at the schools. And we're looking at really doing some really good programs because what we're finding that, we've been in front of over 45,000 kids, besides the administrators and the teachers and the faculty and all that. But what we're finding is there's a lot of problems, within the family, whether it's the mom or the dad or the grandpa or grandma or whatever, they are the ones that have the problem. So hopefully this year what we're looking at doing is after we come into your school and we put on this presentation, we're hoping that we can come back later on in the week and do like a nighttime presentation for the parents and for the adults. Because we find that, speaking to kids, that they really speak out that this is happening in my family. And it's happening in every family. And that's what we're finding out. And we wanna go, real strong at this. And not only do we wanna, get the kids informed, but we wanna bring the families in and hopefully get them some help too. We have a couple different rehab centers that people are involved with the Community Parent. So if you're looking to get help, we have help available for you. And, I'm really, really proud of what Community Parent, I'm really proud of the things that we're doing. I'm really proud of Brianna, because I know that she had this heart and she loved people. She loved children, and she never got a chance to have her own. But her daddy pie is going to keep the message alive, and her daddy pie is going to let people know of Brianna, the person who she was, not of the addiction, of an addict or of the addiction that made her who she was. No, that's not true. I love my daughter. I miss her every day, and I'm hoping, with what we're doing, that you don't have to miss your child. That if a problem arises, that we can get some help for you, and we can go forward that way. Addiction, it's something that's non-curable, but you can live with this. You can live with this. Being an addict, but you have to maintain, and it's one day at a time. One day at a time. To stay off the drugs and alcohol or whatever you're addicted to. Okay. Well, what else is happening here, John? We're getting ready for elections here. I think as a people, the only voice we have is by voting, and we can't be silenced. It doesn't matter which way you vote. Vote your conscience. Vote for somebody that's working for you, because these politicians, it's about we the people. And somewhere along the line, I don't care if they're Democrats, Republican, or Independent or whatever, they seem to be just working for themselves. They're working for who's putting money in their pockets. And as a people, we need to hold these people accountable to the highest standards. And please don't be silent. Don't let them silence you. It seems like our lives are so busy, and they want us to be busy, wrapped up in paying our bills and trying to chase this job and do this. So we close our eyes to what they're doing. And please, I love this country, and that is the only thing that we have to make a difference is our voice by going out and voting and getting the right people that want to work for us, because that's what it is. They represent the people. And they can't represent you if you're not going out there and voting. They can't represent you if you're silent. They can't represent you if you just turn your back on what they're doing. Sometimes we have to stand up. We have to stand up and be accountable for one another, for ourselves, for our future, for our families. We have to stand up and not be silent. And it seemed like I was so quiet for so long. Now I can't shut up because I don't like where we've gone as a people. We don't look out for one another. Everybody's so into their own that they don't care what's happening next door. It's not like that. It's not like that. We have to look out for one another. What do you think, John? Is that right, or?
I think that you got to do everything you can. I mean, it's like a lot of times I have issue with voting because I think we have rules that are all that much different. One's not all that much different than the other. I think it's basically, even though it's a lesser few of the people, there's the why you still have that place. Do everything you can. I mean, until you have to shoot the bastard. That's what I got. I don't really like them that much. I'm not really impressed by them. I do interviews. I don't do the interviews with politicians because I got a contempt of that would come through. So I have somebody else who has less of a contempt, but it's gaining that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, but there is too. There is a political partial solution to the problem. It's like the way we have it so illegal to be a user, and that's the thing that goes along with people. That we have to change that. We have to. And I'm not the idiots out there who say you hear this, they'll say, well, you're advocating for drugs. No, but making it illegal so everybody loses everything when they go through this doesn't seem to be answering what's going on. It's not a proper answer anyway. And we gotta stop the way let's face it, we gotta stop this war on drugs because it's still war on the people.
Exactly.
And everything is bad. The drug use is bad. But when you multiply that with all the social ramifications, legal ramifications, the only people that are making anything out of this that's positive for them are the legal establishment and the politicians.
Exactly.
And that's what we got to change. Because if you are going through this, most people might be going through the very issue you're talking about. They're so reluctant to do it because they go to a doctor. They got to report that.
Yep.
You got to report this. You got to report that. They're going to. And if you might not have contact with them, but now if you go to rehab and if you put a voluntary privilege, you put yourself into a rehabilitation center. There's issue if you're going to be able to have gun rights or if you're going to be able to have this. They're going to try to take everything away from you. Even though it was one issue that maybe had some overlap, now they have to take all your liberties away to make sure you're safe. Well, who wants to deal with that? They're going to just keep on resisting technology. They have a problem because once they do, it's like beyond their control, totally beyond their control, and they're shut down. They're basically shot out of a cannon, and they don't know where they will land.
Well, that's exactly. When I look about, I talk about voting, and it's like here in Michigan, the people voted for medical marijuana, but the establishment is still trying to be reluctant. Why? The people have spoken. They've spoken over 60% of Michiganders. Of Michiganders voted for this. Okay, you don't have any problems with the doctors giving you this medication. A lot of times this grows as a plant, and it has a lot more, lot better for you than a lot of the prescription drugs. Okay, but that's what I keep saying is we gotta hold them accountable Okay, these people that we have in offices, and I think maybe we need to start throwing some people out on their ears so they get the message. It's about we the people. That's the Constitution, is we the people. But somewhere along the line, it's about, let me get rich. Who's gonna pay, the lobbyists and the big corporations? Bullshit. Bullshit. This is not what this country was founded on.
Well, the attitude that we don't know enough about what we're going through to actually make a way in on it. That's what's angers me the most. Everybody does that. This idiot we got in office now, the White House. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else, even though he's never walked in the same people's shoes. He's an elitist. He's never worked a day in his life. Never worked a day in his existence. How the hell is he know how the regular person feels? I mean, the only thing he's actually got on board with that I actually agree with you allegedly is that he didn't push for the real severe enforcement of drug laws, especially marijuana. That's only part in his entire almost 70 years in office that he's done that I agree with.
Well, that's the whole thing is this war on drugs have been around since the early 70s. And it's not getting us anywhere. So we need to take a look at making some changes. We keep doing the same thing with the same results. That's stupidity. That's just stupidity.
Insanity. I think it's like, oh man, I can't get this shit. Did you try your potion for? Well, what the hell's your problem here? You know you're gonna get the same results.
Exactly. Well, that's just, jackass or asinine. So that's the whole thing is, as a people, we just can't be quiet. It's like this. I don't care what person becomes a politician or whatever. They're not going to do everything that I want from them. Nobody is. But let's take the best out of it. If he's giving me, helping me have more work, things that I need for my family, then I can say, okay, I can overlook some other things. But everybody has like the necessities. In this country, everybody wants to get back to work. And it's that we're still a long ways off there. So, anyways, am I done here? Well, thank you for joining me today. I'd love to have you guys give us a call and give me your feedback, what your thoughts are. Thanks for joining us today. This is Community Parent Sam Jaharis signing out.